The rain fell in steady sheets against the windows of Daniel Hayes's. It was the kind of rain that made people want to stay inside, wrapped in warmth and comfort. Daniel wiped down the counter for the third time that evening, watching the droplets race down the glass. New Haven was a quiet colony world, far from the busy trade routes that connected the major systems. That was exactly why Daniel had chosen it. He had spent 15 years piloting cargo ships through dangerous space, dodging pirates and dealing with corrupt port authorities. When he finally saved enough credits, he bought this small building on the edge of the colony's main settlement. It was simple: wooden tables, soft lighting, and the smell of fresh coffee that reminded him of Earth. He served humans mostly, with the occasional alien trader who wandered in looking for a warm meal. The door chimed. Daniel looked up from his cleaning and froze. The creature that entered was unlike anything he had ever seen. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that shimmered between deep purple and brilliant gold in the warm light. Her body was reptilian but elegant, with a long tail that moved with careful precision to avoid knocking over furniture. 2 curved horns rose from her head, and her eyes were ancient. They held a weight that made Daniel think of old stars burning in distant galaxies. She stood in the doorway, water dripping from her scales. For a long moment she did not move. Her gaze swept taking in the empty tables, the soft music playing from old speakers, and Daniel himself. There was something hesitant in her posture, as if she was unsure whether she belonged here. Daniel had learned long ago that everyone deserved kindness. It did not matter if they were human or alien, rich or poor. He smiled and gestured to the tables. "Come in, get out of that rain." The dragon-like alien moved slowly, her clawed feet clicking softly on the wooden floor. She chose a table in the corner, far from the windows, and sat down with surprising grace. Her tail curled around the chair legs. She did not pick up the menu that Daniel had left on every table. She just sat there, staring out at the rain-soaked street. Daniel watched her for a few minutes. She did not move. She did not call for service. She just sat in that corner like a statue carved from precious gems. There was something deeply sad about her stillness. He made a decision. Daniel prepared a cup of his best tea, the kind he usually reserved for special occasions. He added honey and a touch of spice, then carried it to her table. "On the house," he said, setting the cup down gently. "You look like you could use something warm." The alien's head turned slowly to look at him. Her eyes, Daniel noticed, were golden with flecks of silver. They studied him with an intensity that should have been frightening. Instead, he saw surprise there, real, genuine surprise. "I did not order this," she said. Her voice was deep and musical, like a cello playing low notes. "I know, but you are sitting in the rain, and you look like you have been carrying something heavy for a very long time." Daniel pulled out the chair across from her. "Mind if I sit? It is a slow night." The alien stared at him. Daniel wondered if he had made a mistake. Maybe her species did not appreciate uninvited company, but then, slowly, she nodded. Daniel sat down and folded his hands on the table. "I am Daniel Hayes. I own this place." The alien said after a pause, "I am a traveler." "Long way from home." "Very long," picked up the teacup. Her claws were careful, precise. She took a sip and closed her eyes. "This is good, thank you." "You are welcome. What brings you to New Haven? We don't get many travelers out here." Opened her eyes and looked at him again. There was something calculating in her gaze now, as if she was deciding how much to say. "I needed to be somewhere quiet, somewhere I could think without being watched." Daniel nodded. He understood that feeling. "I used to fly cargo ships, spent most of my life surrounded by people, always moving, always dealing with someone's problems. When I retired, I came here because nobody watches you in places like this. Nobody expects anything from you." "That sounds peaceful," said quietly. "It is most days." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "But it can also be lonely. You trade one kind of weight for another." His expression changed. The ancient sadness in her eyes deepened. "Yes, loneliness is a heavy burden." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The rain continued its drumming against the windows. The warmth wrapped around them like a blanket. "Do you ever regret it?" asked suddenly, "giving up your old life?" Daniel thought about that. "Sometimes I miss the stars, I miss seeing new worlds, but I don't miss the constant pressure. Out there you are always proving yourself, always competing. Here I can just be Daniel. I can make coffee and talk to people and go home to a quiet house." "Just be yourself," repeated as if testing the words. "What a strange luxury." Is it? Daniel smiled. I always thought it was the most basic thing a person could want. Looked down at her tea. Her claws traced the rim of the cup. Perhaps for humans, for others, identity is more complicated. We are defined by what we do, what others expect of us. We wear masks for so long that we forget what lies beneath. Daniel heard the pain in those words. That sounds exhausting. It is, took another sip of tea. More exhausting than you could possibly imagine. Then take off the mask, Daniel said simply. At least here, nobody in this cares about who you are supposed to be. They only care about who you are right now. Looked at him for a long time. Something shifted in her expression. The hardness around her eyes softened just a little. You are kind, Daniel Hayes, dangerously kind. Dangerous, Daniel laughed. I have never been called dangerous before. Kindness is the most dangerous thing in the universe, said. Her voice was serious. It can break down walls that armies cannot breach. It can change minds that logic cannot reach. Daniel did not know what to say to that. He simply smiled and stood up. Well, if kindness is dangerous, then I suppose I am guilty. Let me know if you need anything else. He walked back to the counter, giving her space. She sat there for another hour, drinking her tea slowly, watching the rain. When she finally stood to leave, she approached the counter. How much do I owe you? Nothing, I told you it was on the house. Tilted her head. You do not even know me. Does that matter? You needed warmth and kindness. I had both to give. Daniel wiped down a glass. Come back any time. The tea is always hot. Returned exactly 1 week later. Daniel was serving lunch to a family of colonists when the door chimed. He looked up and felt a smile cross his face. The tall, dragon-like alien stood in the doorway, her purple and gold scales catching the afternoon sunlight. Welcome back, Daniel called out. Your corner table is free. Nodded and moved to the same seat she had taken before. Daniel finished taking the family's order, then brought the same tea he had made the first time. She accepted it with that same look of surprise, as if she still could not believe someone would do something kind without expecting payment. You remembered, she said. Of course, good memory is important in this business. Daniel sat down across from her again. How have your travels been? Complicated, said. She wrapped her claws around the warm cup. I have been thinking about what you said about taking off the mask. And it is harder than it sounds. When you wear something long enough, it becomes part of you. Removing it feels like tearing away skin. Daniel nodded slowly. I think I understand. When I was a pilot, I had to be tough, had to show everyone I could not be pushed around. The shipping lanes are full of people who see kindness as weakness. I wore that tough mask for 15 years. When I came here, it took me months to remember how to be soft again. Did you succeed? Mostly, Daniel smiled. Some days are easier than others, but I think it is worth the effort. Being yourself, even when it is hard, is better than pretending forever. Took a long sip of her tea. You make it sound simple. It is simple, not easy, but simple. There is a difference. Over the next few weeks came to the 3 or 4 times a week. She always sat in the same corner. She always ordered tea, though Daniel started experimenting with different blends. They talked about many things. Daniel shared stories from his years as a pilot, the close calls with asteroid fields, the beautiful nebulas he had seen, the ports where he had made friends. Spoke more carefully. She told stories about distant worlds, but Daniel noticed she never mentioned specific names or places. She talked about leadership and burden, about making decisions that affected millions, about the loneliness of power. She spoke in metaphors and careful phrases, but Daniel could read between the lines. You are someone important, aren't you? He asked one afternoon. Went very still. What makes you say that? The way you talk, the way you carry yourself, that bow you gave me the first night. Nobody bows like that unless they come from a place with serious traditions. Daniel leaned forward. But you don't want to talk about it, so I won't push. Just know that whoever you are out there, and here you are just, my friend who likes honey in her tea. His expression softened in a way Daniel had never seen before. Your friend, she repeated quietly. When was the last time someone called me that without wanting something in return? Probably too long, Daniel said. Centuries, admitted. Literal centuries. Daniel wanted to ask more, but his business partner arrived. Lisa Morgan was a sharp woman in her 40s who handled the supply chain and finances. She stopped short when she saw. Oh, I didn't know we had company. Lisa, this is Lisa Morgan, my partner in this business. Lisa approached slowly. She was clearly uncertain how to greet a massive dragon-like alien, solved the problem by nodding politely. Daniel speaks highly of you, said. He says you keep this place running smoothly. Someone has to, Lisa said with a small smile. Daniel would give away every meal for free if I let him. Kindness is not a business strategy, Daniel protested. No, but it is a good philosophy for life, said. She looked at Lisa with genuine interest. You two work well together. We balance each other out, Lisa said. She glanced at Daniel with curiosity in her eyes. He knew she would have questions later about their mysterious regular customer. As weeks turned into months became part of this rhythm. The other regulars grew used to seeing the imposing alien in the corner. Some even nodded greetings to her. Children stared with wide eyes until their parents reminded them it was rude, handled it all with patient grace. One evening, after most customers had left, spoke about her work. I have to make decisions, she said quietly. Decisions that affect billions of lives, and I realize I have been making those decisions from a place of isolation. I see numbers, reports, statistics, but I had forgotten what it is like to simply sit with someone and share a drink. What kind of decisions? Daniel asked. Important ones. There is a debate happening right now about a species called humans. Some of my advisors want to limit their expansion into the galaxy. They say humans are too emotional, too unpredictable. Others argue that humans bring something valuable, a perspective we have lost. Daniel felt a chill. You are talking about my people. Yes, met his eyes. I have read countless reports about human behavior, but reports cannot capture what I have learned here. They cannot measure the value of genuine kindness, or the strength it takes to show vulnerability, or the courage of choosing softness in a hard universe. What will you decide? I do not know yet, but these conversations have changed how I see the question. Paused. You have changed how I see many things, Daniel Hayes. Daniel felt the weight of her words. He suddenly understood that was not just important. She was someone with real power, the kind that shaped galactic policy. And somehow his small had become a place where such decisions were being influenced. No pressure, right? He joked weakly. His laugh was unexpected. It was a deep, rumbling sound that shook the teacups on the table. I like you, human. You treat me like a person even when you understand I am something more. That is rare, precious even. Everyone deserves to be treated like a person, Daniel said. Doesn't matter how important they are. That philosophy of yours, said thoughtfully. That belief in basic dignity and kindness, do all humans share it? Not all of us, but enough. We have our problems, our conflicts, our cruelty, but we also have this. He gestured around We have the ability to create spaces where anyone can come in from the cold and find warmth. We believe that matters. Stood up, she was quiet for a long moment, looking around as if memorizing every detail. I need to return to my duties soon. There are matters I have been avoiding. Daniel felt a sudden sadness. Will you come back? If I can, said. She reached out and placed one clawed hand gently on his shoulder. The gesture was careful, controlled. You have given me a gift, Daniel Hayes. You reminded me of what I was fighting for all those centuries ago. You showed me that power means nothing without compassion. I just made tea and talked, Daniel said. Exactly, smiled, and it transformed her face. That is all it took. She left that night, and Daniel did not see her for 2 weeks. He found himself looking at the door every time it chimed, hopping to see her purple and gold scales. Lisa noticed his distraction. You miss her, she said one afternoon. Yeah, is that strange? Maybe, but maybe not, Lisa smiled. She clearly valued your friendship. Whatever else she is, that much is real. Daniel hoped Lisa was right. He hoped that somewhere out in the vast galaxy was making the news came through official channels 3 weeks after his last visit. Daniel was cleaning the morning dishes when Lisa burst through the door, her face pale. Turn on the news feed, she said. Now. Daniel activated the wall screen. A news anchor from the Central Colonies was speaking with barely controlled panic. To repeat, the ruler of the Galactic Dominion has been missing for nearly a month. Imperial sources refused to comment on her whereabouts, leading to speculation about a possible coup or assassination. Several minor factions are already positioning for power, and there are reports of increased military activity in disputed territories. Daniel felt his stomach drop. The Galactic Dominion was the largest political entity in known space. It maintained peace across thousands of worlds through a combination of diplomacy and overwhelming military force. If its leader was truly gone, the stability of the entire galaxy was at risk. "This is bad," Lisa said quietly. "Very bad," Daniel agreed. But he could not shake a strange feeling, missing for a month. That timing matched exactly with when had started visiting his. He pushed the thought away. It was ridiculous, was just a traveler, someone seeking peace and quiet. Still, he could not help but worry about her. The situation deteriorated quickly over the next few days. News feeds reported skirmishes breaking out in previously peaceful sectors. The Galactic Council issued statements calling for calm, but nobody seemed to be listening. Old grudges and territorial disputes were resurfacing like poison from deep wells. Then came the announcement that changed everything. "This is an emergency broadcast," the news anchor said, his voice tight with fear. "The consortium has declared that human colonies are no longer under Galactic Dominion protection. They claim humans are weak links in galactic security and must be brought under supervision for the safety of all species." "That is just a fancy way of saying invasion," Lisa said. She was right. Within hours, reports came in of warships moving toward human territories. The human defense fleet scrambled to respond, but everyone knew the truth. Humanity was a young species in galactic terms. Their military was small, their technology generations behind the major powers. Without the Dominion's protection, they were vulnerable. New Haven was small and isolated, but it sat near an important jump point that connected 3 different sectors. Daniel knew that made it strategic. He knew the would come. They arrived on a cold morning exactly 1 week after their announcement. 3 massive warships dropped out of hyperspace and took position above the colony. Their hulls were dark metal covered in weapon arrays that could reduce the entire settlement to ash in minutes. The colony's governor called an emergency meeting. Daniel attended along with every other business owner and community leader. The meeting hall was packed with frightened people. "They are demanding complete surrender," Governor said. She was a tough woman who had led the colony through harsh winters and equipment failures, but now she looked exhausted. "They want control of our resources, our trade routes, and they want us to swear loyalty to the consortium." "What happens if we refuse?" someone asked. "They start shooting." The hall erupted in shouting. Some people wanted to fight, others argued for surrender. A few suggested evacuating, though everyone knew there was not enough transport for all 5,000 colonists. Daniel listened to the arguments and felt his heart sink. These were good people, hard-working families who had come to New Haven looking for a better life. They did not deserve this. "We should evacuate who we can," he said during a break in the shouting. "Families with children first. The rest of us can stay and try to negotiate." "Negotiate with someone scoffed. "They don't negotiate, they conquer." "Maybe, but we have to try." In the end, that was what they decided. Transports would take the children and those unable to fight. Everyone else would stay. Daniel knew it was probably futile, but he could not bring himself to abandon his home, everything he had built. Lisa grabbed his arm as people filed out of the meeting hall. "You should go. You have no family here, no obligation." "This is my home," Daniel said simply. "Someone needs to stand witness. Someone needs to remember what happened here, even if it is just for a few more hours." The commander came down in a shuttle the next day. He was a massive creature with dark chitin armor and too many eyes. His guards flanked him as he stood in the colony's central square. Half the remaining colonists gathered to hear what he would say. "Humans," he clicked, his translator turning the sound into harsh words. "You are weak. You are primitive. Your emotions make you unstable. The consortium offers you protection and order. You will surrender your weapons, your government, and your resources. In return, we will allow you to live." Governor stepped forward, "And if we refuse, then you will learn what happens to those who defy the consortium." Daniel pushed through the crowd. He did not have a plan. He only knew that someone needed to try something different. He stepped up beside the governor. "Commander," he said, "before you make any final decisions, would you share a meal with us? Let us show you human hospitality. Let us talk as civilized beings." The commander's multiple eyes focused on Daniel. "Hospitality? You think food and soft words will change anything?" "Maybe not, but it costs nothing to try." Daniel gestured toward his, visible from the square. I make excellent tea, and conversation is always better than threats. The commander made a sound that might have been laughter. You are either very brave or very stupid human. Probably both, Daniel admitted, but the offer stands. For a long moment the commander studied him. Then he made a dismissive gesture. No, the time for talk is over. The consortium does not waste time with soft, emotional primitives. You humans think kindness is strength. You think compassion makes you civilized. It only makes you weak. He turned to his guards. Take this one. Execute him in front of the others. Let them see what happens to those who think words can stop power. The guards moved forward. Daniel felt hands grab his arms. He did not struggle. Fear flooded through him, but he kept his face calm. If he was going to die, he would die with dignity. That was something that could never take from him. Governor and others shouted in protest. The crowd surged forward, but more soldiers appeared, weapons raised. It was chaos and noise and fear. Then the sky changed. Golden light poured down from above like a second sun had appeared. The soldiers stopped. Everyone stopped. The light was so bright it hurt to look at, but Daniel could not look away. Something was descending from the clouds. Something massive and ancient and terrible had arrived. She was not trying to hide anymore. Her full draconic form was on display, easily the size of a warship. Her scales blazed with purple and gold light. Her wings spread wide enough to cast shadows over half the colony. When she landed in the square, the ground shook. The commander stumbled backward. His guards dropped their weapons. All around the square, people fell to their knees, though whether from fear or awe, Daniel could not tell. His voice, when she spoke, was nothing like the gentle tone Daniel knew. This was the voice of empires, of ages beyond counting, of power that could reshape worlds. Release him, she commanded. The guards holding Daniel let go so fast he almost fell. They scrambled away, joining their commander who was backing toward his shuttle. His golden eyes found the commander. I asked you a question. Why are you attacking my friend's home? The commander's translator struggled to keep up with his panicked clicking. Your Majesty, Eternal Empress, we thought you were dead. We thought the throne was empty. So you decided to attack innocent colonies. His wings spread wider. The temperature in the square dropped noticeably. You thought my absence gave you permission to terrorize those weaker than yourselves. We were securing strategic positions. The galaxy needs order. Without your rule, chaos would consume everything. And you thought fear and conquest would bring order. Took a step forward. The commander fell to his knees. I have ruled for 10,000 years. I have reduced rebellious systems to ash. I have broken armies and crushed fleets. I know what true power looks like. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried across the entire colony. But in all those centuries, I forgot something important. I forgot that power without compassion is just tyranny. I forgot that true strength includes kindness. Daniel stood frozen as words echoed across the square. The eternal empress of the galactic dominion. The being who had sat in his drinking tea and talking about loneliness was the most powerful entity in known space. His mind struggled to process this reality. Around him, the colonists were equally stunned. Governor had gone pale. Lisa stood with her mouth open. The commander was prostrate on the ground, his multiple limbs trembling. His massive form shifted. She lowered her head so she could look directly at Daniel. Despite her size and the power radiating from her scales, her eyes held the same gentleness he had seen across the table. I am sorry, Daniel Hayes, she said quietly. I should have told you the truth. Daniel found his voice. It came out steadier than he expected. You came to me because you needed a place where nobody knew who you were, a place where you could just be yourself. Yes, his expression showed relief that he understood. For the first time someone treated me as simply a person. You gave me friendship without agenda, kindness without expectation of reward. Do you know how rare that is? I just made tea, Daniel said. You did much more than that, straightened to her full height. Her wings caught the sunlight, scattering golden light across the assembled crowd. You reminded me why I took this throne in the first place, not to inspire fear but to protect, not to conquer but to create peace. She turned her attention back to the commander. The temperature dropped again. Ice began forming on the edges of buildings. You came here to exploit my absence, said. Her voice was like winter itself. You thought to carve up territories you considered weak. You believed fear and force were the only languages worth speaking. The commander tried to speak, but no sound came from his translator. He simply shook, his dark chitin plates rattling against each other. "I have destroyed entire fleets for less than this," continued. "I have turned planets to glass for daring to threaten my subjects. The consortium knows this. Your leaders know what I am capable of when I am angry." Power gathered around her. The air itself seemed to bend. Daniel could feel the energy building, like static before a lightning strike. This was the power that had kept peace across the galaxy for 10,000 years. This was what happened when someone threatened what the Empress protected. The warships above began powering their weapons. They were preparing to either flee or fight, though everyone knew fighting would be suicide. Alone could destroy all 3 ships before they could fire a single shot. Daniel watched the scene unfold with growing horror. He understood Sanger. They had come here to conquer, to terrorize, to destroy everything he and his neighbors had built. They deserved punishment. But he also remembered the conversations in his. He remembered speaking about the burden of command, about making decisions from isolation, about forgetting the value of mercy. He remembered his own words about kindness being the most important thing. He stepped forward before he could think better of it. He said, "Wait." The gathered power paused. Every eye, human and alien alike, turned to him. The commander looked at Daniel with something that might have been desperate hope. "Daniel," said softly, "you do not need to speak. This creature threatened your home, he threatened you. Justice demands a response." "I know," Daniel's heart was pounding. "But you told me once that kindness is dangerous, that it can break down walls that armies cannot breach. You said it can change minds that logic cannot reach." "I did say that," acknowledged. "Then let me ask you something." Daniel walked forward until he stood between and the commander. It was probably the most terrifying position in the galaxy at that moment. "What kind of example do we want to set? Do we respond to fear with more fear? Do we answer violence with greater violence? Or do we try something different?" "They came here to destroy you," said. "To enslave your people. They called you weak for your compassion." "They did, and maybe they are right. Maybe compassion is a weakness." Daniel looked back at the commander, who was still trembling on the ground. "But I would rather be weak and kind than strong and cruel. I would rather take the risk of mercy than the certainty of revenge." The square was absolutely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. The fate of the consortium hung in the balance, and everyone knew it. Stared at Daniel for a long moment. Then, incredibly, she laughed. It was the same deep, rumbling sound he had heard in the but 1,000 times. The ground shook with it. "You magnificent fool," she said with affection. "You stand before the most powerful being in the galaxy and lecture her about mercy. You plead for the lives of those who would have killed you minutes ago." "Someone has to," Daniel said, "and you taught me that strength includes knowing when not to use it." Was quiet. The power around her began to dissipate. The air warmed. The ice on the buildings started to melt. "Very well," she said finally. "I will show mercy, but not because they deserve it. They do not. I show mercy because you asked for it, Daniel Hayes, because you reminded me that there are worse things than appearing weak. There are worse things than choosing kindness." She looked at the commander with eyes that could burn through steel. "You will leave this system immediately. You will return to your consortium and tell them what happened here. Tell them the Eternal Empress has returned, and she has learned something important. Tell them that any attack on human colonies will be considered an attack on me personally." The commander nodded frantically. "Yes, Your Majesty, immediately. We will leave now." "Not yet." Tail moved, blocking his path to the shuttle. "You called humans weak. You said their compassion made them primitives, but this human just saved your life and the lives of everyone in your fleet. He showed you more mercy than you showed him." She leaned down until her massive head was level with the commander. "Which of you is truly civilized, the one who came with weapons and threats, or the one who offered tea and conversation?" The commander had no answer. "Go," commanded, "and pray we never meet again." The commander and his guards fled to their shuttle. Within minutes, the 3 warships were leaving orbit, their engines burning hot in their haste to escape. Emergency broadcasts were already going out across the galaxy. The Eternal Empress had returned. She was protecting the humans. Anyone who threatened them would face her wrath. But more than that, the broadcasts carried something else. Video footage of a human standing between the Empress and her enemies, pleading for mercy. Images of the most powerful being in the galaxy listening to the wisdom of a owner from a backwater colony. It would change everything. Its form began to shrink. The massive dragon-like shape folded in on itself until she was the size Daniel remembered from the... She walked over to him on steady feet, her scales still glowing but no longer blindingly bright. "You took a terrible risk," she said quietly. "I could have ignored your plea." "But you didn't," Daniel said. "Because beneath all that power, you are still my friend who likes honey in her tea. You are still who understands loneliness and kindness." Placed a gentle claw on his shoulder. "Thank you for reminding me who I am, for showing me what humans are truly capable of." She looked around at the assembled colonists, all of whom were still staring in shock. "I am placing New Haven and all human colonies under my direct protection. Any who threaten you threaten me, but more than that, I am appointing Daniel Hayes as the first human ambassador to the Galactic Dominion." "What?" Daniel felt dizzy. "I am just a owner." "You are more than that. You are proof that wisdom does not require power, that courage does not require weapons, and that kindness is the greatest strength of all." Smiled. "Besides, the galaxy needs voices like yours. It needs people who will plead for mercy even when revenge would be easier." Daniel wanted to refuse. The responsibility was enormous, but he looked at the faces around him, human and alien alike, and he understood. This was bigger than him. This was about what humanity could bring to the galaxy. This was about changing hearts and minds through compassion instead of force. "I accept," he said, "on one condition." "Name it." "I still get to run my. I still get to make tea and talk to people who need a quiet place to think." His laugh was warm. "Agreed. In fact, I think you should become neutral ground, a place where anyone from any species can come and be treated with basic dignity and kindness." "I can do that," Daniel said. News of what happened at New Haven spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every major news network broadcast the footage. A human owner pleading for the lives of invaders, the eternal empress listening to his words and choosing mercy over destruction. The message was clear and impossible to ignore. Humanity was under the personal protection of the most powerful being in existence. Daniel stood in his 3 days later, watching the news feeds with a mix of pride and exhaustion. Requests for interviews flooded his communication system. Diplomats from a dozen species wanted to meet with him. Trade representatives offered lucrative deals. Everyone wanted a piece of the human who had the Empress's ear. Lisa helped him sort through the messages, deleting most of them. "You are famous now," she said. "How does it feel?" "Overwhelming," Daniel admitted. "I just wanted to run a..." "Well, you are still doing that, just with a much more complicated customer base." She was right. The had become a gathering place for beings from across the galaxy. Daniel had served tea to traders, crystalline scholars, and gaseous entities that communicated through color changes. They all came to see the place where the Empress had learned about human kindness. Some came out of curiosity. Others came seeking the same peace had found. Daniel treated them all the same way he had treated her, with respect, warmth, and excellent tea. Herself had returned to the imperial throne world immediately after the incident. She had centuries of neglected business to handle, but she sent messages regularly, and she promised to visit when she could. The changes she was making rippled through the Dominion. She reduced military presence in peaceful sectors. She opened new channels for diplomatic dialogue. Most importantly, she began restructuring the imperial government to include more voices, more perspectives, more compassion. The old guard resisted. There were factions that preferred the rule of fear, but was ancient and powerful, and when she made a decision, it became reality. The galaxy would learn to value kindness, even if the lesson took time. Daniel was preparing lunch orders when the door chimed. He looked up and smiled, stood in the doorway, returned to her more modest size. Behind her were 3 other beings. One was a, though not the commander from before. The other 2 were species Daniel did not recognize. "Welcome back," Daniel said. "Your table is ready." Moved to her corner seat. The other beings followed, looking nervous. Daniel brought tea for everyone, noticing how the claws shook slightly as he accepted the cup. "Daniel Hayes," said formally. "These are representatives from the Consortium, the Collective, and the Varix Assembly. They have come to discuss a new treaty proposal." Daniel set down the tea tray. "Here in my..." "You suggested this become neutral ground," said with a slight smile. We're better to discuss peace than in a place that teaches kindness." The representative clicked nervously. His translator rendered his words in a humble tone. "Ambassador Hayes, on behalf of the consortium, I offer formal apology for our actions at New Haven. We were wrong to threaten your people. We ask for the chance to learn better." Daniel studied the alien. He saw genuine shame in those multiple eyes. This was not the same arrogant commander who had ordered his execution. This was someone trying to change. "Apology accepted," Daniel said. "And please just call me Daniel. I'm still getting used to the ambassador title." The representative, a being made of flowing silver liquid, spoke next. "We have watched your actions with great interest. You showed mercy to those who showed you none. That is a rare thing in our galaxy." "It should not be rare," Daniel said. "Everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves to be treated with basic dignity." "The Varix Assembly agrees," said the third representative, a creature covered in blue feathers. "We propose an alliance based on these principles, not through force but through mutual respect, not through fear but through cooperation." Watch Daniel carefully. "What do you think? You are the human representative in this." Daniel sat down at the table. He looked at each being in turn. The Who represented a species that had tried to conquer his world. The Envarix, who came from civilizations older than human, and his friend who happened to rule over all of them. "I think," Daniel said slowly, "that the galaxy has been doing things the same way for a very long time. Power and fear kept peace, but they did not create real understanding. Maybe it is time to try something different." "Different how?" asked the... "By starting small, by building relationships one conversation at a time, by treating each other as people first and representatives second." Daniel gestured around the... "This place works because everyone who comes here knows they will be treated with respect. They know they can take off their masks and just be themselves. Why can't the galaxy work the same way?" The Varix representative's feathers ruffled with what might have been surprise. "You propose we rebuild galactic relations based on the principles of a..." "Why not? The biggest changes often start in the smallest places." Daniel poured more tea. "Look at us right now. A Varix, a dragon, and a human all sitting at the same table. 6 months ago, half of us would have been shooting at each other. But right now, we are just people sharing tea." His expression softened. "This is why I chose you, Daniel Hayes. You see past the complexity to the simple truth. We are all just people trying to find our way." Over the next several hours, they talked, not about treaties or trade agreements or military alliances. They talked about their hopes, their fears, their dreams for a better galaxy. The representative spoke about wanting to move past his species' aggressive history. They discussed the loneliness of being so different from solid beings. The Varix shared stories of ancient conflicts that still haunted their collective memory. Daniel listened and asked questions and made more tea. Lisa joined them for part of the discussion, offering her perspective as someone who had built a business on cooperation and mutual benefit. By the time the sun set, they had the framework for something new. Not just an alliance, but a philosophy. The Accord of New Haven, they would call it. A commitment to treating all beings with dignity, to seeking understanding before conflict, to valuing compassion alongside strength. It would not solve all the galaxy's problems. There would still be conflicts and disagreements, but it was a start. As the representatives prepared to leave, they approached Daniel. "May I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you save us? After what we tried to do to you, you had every right to let the Empress destroy our fleet. Why show mercy?" Daniel thought about his answer. "Because revenge feels good for a moment, but it does not build anything. Mercy is harder. Forgiveness takes real courage. But it is the only way to break cycles of violence. Someone has to be willing to take that first step." The bowed deeply. "You have taught me something today, all of us, thank you." After they left, remained. She helped Daniel clean the tables, an absurd sight that made him laugh. The ruler of the galaxy wiping down tables. "You are enjoying this too much," said, but she was smiling. "I am, because this is what I wanted when I opened this place. A space where anyone could come and feel welcome." Daniel hung up the cleaning cloth. "I never imagined it would extend to the whole galaxy." "Neither did I," admitted. "When I first walked through that door, I was lost. I had forgotten why I took the throne. I ruled through power and fear because that was all I knew anymore. And now I remember. I remember that I became Empress to protect people, not to dominate them. You gave that back to me." She looked around with genuine fondness. This place is special, Daniel. It changed me. It will change the galaxy too. Daniel felt overwhelmed by the responsibility. What if I fail? What if I make mistakes? You will make mistakes. Everyone does. But you will also show people that it is okay to try, to be vulnerable, to choose kindness even when it is hard. Placed a gentle claw on his shoulder. That is all anyone can ask. Over the following months, Daniels became exactly what it envisioned. Beings from across the galaxy came to sit at his tables. Some came for political reasons, trying to gain influence through him. Daniel politely redirected them to official channels. Others came genuinely seeking the peace and understanding they had heard about. He served them all tea. He listened to their stories. He treated a poor colony farmer with the same respect he showed to galactic senators. They became known as a place where status did not matter, where everyone was simply a person looking for connection. The Accord of New Haven grew into a real movement. More species joined, drawn by the promise of a galaxy built on cooperation rather than conquest. There were setbacks and difficulties. Old grudges did not disappear overnight, but slowly, steadily, things began to change. Visited regularly. Sometimes she came for official business, meeting with ambassadors or discussing policy. But more often, she came simply to sit in her corner table, drink tea, and talk with her friend. Those conversations remained private, sacred spaces where the Empress could take off her crown and just be again. 1 year after the incident that changed everything, Daniel stood in his looking at the diverse crowd. Humans sat beside. Scholars debated philosophy with Varrics artists. Children of a dozen species played together in the corner while their parents shared meals. Lisa came to stand beside him. Quite a change from when we started. Yeah, Daniel smiled. Remember when our biggest worry was whether we could afford new equipment. I miss those simple days sometimes, but I would not trade this for anything. Lisa gestured at the, look at what you built, look at what you started. I just made tea, Daniel said. No's voice came from behind them. She had entered without them noticing. You did much more than that. You reminded the galaxy of something it had forgotten. You showed us that the smallest acts of kindness can have the largest impact. She moved to her table, and Daniel brought her usual tea without needing to ask. Honey and a touch of spice, served in her favorite cup. Thank you, said as she accepted the drink, for everything. Thank you, Daniel replied, for trusting me, for listening, for being my friend. They sat together in comfortable silence, two beings from vastly different worlds, connected by something simple and profound. Around them, the buzzed with life and conversation. Outside, the galaxy continued to turn, slowly learning the lessons this small place had to teach. Daniel Hayes had opened because he wanted to create a space of warmth and kindness. He never imagined it would become the foundation for galactic peace. But sometimes, the most important changes begin in the most unexpected places. Sometimes, all it takes is a cup of tea and the willingness to treat everyone with dignity and respect. Sometimes, kindness really is the most dangerous and powerful force in the universe. He had no idea what he was getting into, but he knew it was important, and he knew that sometimes the smallest gestures of kindness could change the entire galaxy. Looked at Daniel, her expression was gentle despite her terrifying form. This human reminded me. That would make the universe a little kinder, a little softer. He hoped their conversations had mattered. He had no idea just how much they would matter in the days to come. Studied him one more time, then to his surprise she bowed. It was a gesture of deep respect, the kind of bow that spoke of old traditions and formal courts. Thank you, Daniel Hayes, I will remember this. She left, disappearing into the rain-soaked night. Daniel watched her go, wondering about the strange alien with sad eyes and careful words. He did not know that he had just shared tea with the most powerful being in the galaxy. He did not know that their conversation would change the fate of billions. He only knew that someone had needed kindness, and he had given it. That, to Daniel Hayes, was enough.